Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Sports Network. My name is Joe Miller. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills offensive lineman John Fina and Jerry Ostrowski, and you can find them on Twitter at John Fina and at I say underscore every time first, and it's never right, at Ostrowski _Big O. So good to have these two fellas joining me for this episode, as well as all of those of you that are watching us live right now. Please do us a favor. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this live broadcast on, or if you are listening to it in post as a podcast. It is distributed on every podcast platform. So if you want to ever catch us, if you can't catch us live and you want to catch us in post, please do so on any podcast platform. But we are 53 days now away from the NFL draft, and I only know that, Jerry, because last week we were Jerry Ostrowski 60 days away from the NFL draft. And this past week, all the major draft prospects were in Indianapolis getting poked and prodded by all 32 NFL football teams, their staff, their management, their trainers, and everybody that you can think of. We're going to get into some of that. We're going to get into some conversations that kind of took place this past week. But before we do that, there is some news out there. First and foremost, for those of you that may be living under a rock, the Buffalo Bills and wide receiver Khalil Shakir reached an agreement on the 25th of February, a couple days ago, for a contract extension, 4 years worth up to $60.2 million, including $32 million guaranteed at signing, with $18 million paid on the first 12 months. The deal ties him to Buffalo through the 2029 season. Gentlemen, first thoughts about that contract and that deal?
I will say this. I love it, right? Here's a guy who really feels at home, who feels connected to the quarterback, connected to the offense, to the opportunity. You know, he didn't want to risk it, go out in the marketplace, even though I think he is a very high caliber player. But I think he just gets it. I think he feels like if his idea is to get a ring, this is the place to do it. I'm thrilled about this. Been a big fan since he was at Boise State, and it evens everything out in that wide receiver room, continues the continuity, more beef tallow for Khalil Shakir, breaking tackles, yakking all the way down the field. I'm a huge fan. I was so relieved to hear that.
No, I think John hit the nail on the head. I think there's something to be said about comfort. There's something to be said about knowing the situation and knowing what you're in and being comfortable with what you're doing. And I think this signing screams that. I think Shakir is very, very comfortable in Buffalo. He likes his teammates. He likes who he's playing with. He likes who he's playing for. And, you know, the league, I think there's guys out there that chase money a lot of times, and they get into situations that are just, you know, for lack of better terms, horrible situations. And sometimes money, you know, how much is enough money? And, you know, sometimes you're willing to give a little up to be in a situation that's really, really good. And I think that's what this deal says.
That's a great point, Jerry. I mean, you could end up playing for the Jets or the Browns or the late 90s, early 2000s Cardinals. We'd heard rumors, Joe. You know, rumors go around the league back then. It wasn't like you had Twitter and Instagram, and you hear, oh, God, you don't want to go to Arizona. It's awful. And then I ended up in Arizona for my last year. And I'm like, how bad could it be? Holy cow. It was horrible.
So bad that John commuted almost 2 hours every day to and from work. Just to,
I lived in Market, bro. I lived in Market.
we saw Matt Milano go through it. I remember where I was when I saw the Matt Milano extension a couple of years back, and everybody, the expectation back then was that he was going to command 17 to 19 million, and a lot of Bills Mafia, as we were content creators, and John and I were doing the show back then, is the Off Tackle Show, and it was very much at that number, no, right? And I don't know how the Bills could possibly keep him, and then he comes in at 14 and clearly gave the Bills a hometown discount. I don't know that you two could necessarily answer the question because you played the bulk of your careers in Buffalo, but when that renegotiation time comes, at what point are you thinking about it? Is it literally like, nope, going to get through this? Because we always hear the guy, oh, not thinking about that, right? The agent's working on all that kind of stuff. And then they get into the season. Oh, I'm not thinking about it. You know, we'll wait till after the season to think about that. how much does it really affect the day-to-day? For me, I think I would be like telling my wife, I don't know where we're going to be next year. Right?
I think you should always be telling your wife that if you're a football player. I mean, you just
Yep.
don't know. And if you're a coach, forget it. You're moving every 3.5 to 5 years.
Right.
So the realistic nature of it is you want your representation to do your bidding insofar as if your inclination is to stay with a team, then you don't want somebody going in there and getting unreasonably combative to try to get you a number beyond, your market value, or if you're not the number one, set a new market value. Right. So I think if you're going to play it out, and guys play it out, I played it out my first contract, circumstances being what they are, I didn't think about it a lot. And it depends on the personality. And I peg Khalil Shakir as a guy who's, just wants to play. And he wants to play in Buffalo, and he wants to get the deal done. And he's telling his representation, get me into a spot where I'm reasonably well rewarded for my work, my upside, and try to keep me in Buffalo as best you can.
Yeah.
It's funny. The great Karl Mock used to tell us all the time that there's two types of people in the NFL. There's temps and there's perms. Perms are the guys that work in the administration building. They're the ones that no matter what happens are going to come back and have a job. Then there's the temps, and that's the players and the coaches.
That's right.
So he used to explain that to us all the time. But no, I didn't. Hell, I wasn't in the position to think about it. My situation was a little bit different when I did hit free agency, and I did have an opportunity to go elsewhere. I had 4 teams, one of them being my town I grew up in, Philadelphia, which would have been a nightmare trying to get all those freaking bums tickets that would have been all of a sudden out of the woodwork. But it just depends on how you feel. And I relate to Shakir. I was always very comfortable in Buffalo. Buffalo is a town that I relate to. It's a city I relate to. I liked it there. I love the fact that during hunting season I could be in a deer stand on Tuesday mornings and then go get a workout in. I mean, it was very, very enjoyable to me. And that's not to say there's not stress. There's always stress, but no, I think there's a lot to be said. It's a stressful enough job as it is when you're somewhere you don't want to be and then you're trying to play as well. It's extremely difficult.
Yeah, it's there's something to be said for what you just said. When you think about Jim Kelly, right? Jim Kelly's an avid hunter. Mario Williams, when Mario Williams came here, bought Jim Kelly's first home in Buffalo, which was in the woods in Orchard Park. Like, but nobody listening to this program is unaware that Buffalo, you get 10 miles outside the city and you're in the forest. I mean, it's a very unique place as far as that goes. And there's a lot of opportunity for guys that at Oliver, there's a lot of opportunity for guys that like that. Well, Josh Allen grew up on a farm. Right. And you look, I mean, for a guy like Josh Allen to live where he lives on the border of Orchard Park in Hamburg, out in the skirts, but he's still 5 minutes or 8 minutes from the stadium. Like,
right there, but there's great opportunity for both. I mean, John was a guy that enjoyed the city. He embraced the city, he liked that type of thing, and he lived downtown and he loved it. I like to be out towards Orchard Park. I mean, Alex Van Pelt had a place out in Springville almost, or Colton or whatever.
Colton.
I mean, Colton. It was, and I lived in Colton for a little while. I mean, you got the best of both worlds. It's a really cool place. I mean,
for those unfamiliar, Colton is exactly how it sounds. It's cold.
I'd never heard of it.
And I lived in a log cabin when I was there too.
Awesome. More news from the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, as per Tony Pauline, reported today, the Buffalo Bills have put in a bid to land Browns defensive end Myles Garrett.
I was wondering if that was real.
I thought they said they were going to put in a bid, or did they put the bid in?
Yeah, it depends on who's tweeting what. Right. And then there's also a rogue tweet out there that says the Buffalo Bills have confirmed that they've done this, and the Buffalo Bills have not confirmed it yet. They just the rumor is, the story is that the Bills are absolutely going to put a bid in for Myles Garrett, which we talked at length last week. So I think we're all probably on the same page with that one, right? This is good, right? So
it's exceptionally good. I mean, the only bad part about this is that the Eagles are also tied to trying to get Myles Garrett on their team.
Yes.
And however Howley's working the cap, everybody needs to go to Philly and pay money to study it, because if he's able to get him on that team with what they got, my Lord.
Yeah.
Real fast though, I want to address something over here in the comments from Aaron Knights. He talks about, if anybody's heard about Cook, great player, only 50% of offensive plays, can't block well. I think it's a mistake and take his business to social media. If you heard Brandon Beane at the combine, Beane made that comment. He wished he wouldn't have taken it to social media, but I think everybody needs to just bring it down a notch and understand this is also part of negotiations, and this is part of getting new contracts. And who is besides Myles Garrett, the only other player tied to the Bills that has been talked about more in the last 2 weeks is James Cook. And that's because of what he said. And, I think you just got to kind of take that for what it is. I just wanted to address that. I don't think I haven't heard anything, but I also know this. I don't think people need to get wrapped up in those comments. I think it's part of the negotiation game. It's what players do. Some do it, some don't. It's like McDermott said, it'll all take care of itself eventually.
That's right, Jerry. You nailed it. The temps upstairs, they know social media exists. They know he's throwing a number out. May or may not be based on anything real, and they're okay with it. It's like an opening salvo. Hey, you know what?
Right,
I'm not going to come out and say what's your best offer, and then I'm going to take it. Right? I'm going to set the ceiling at 15, 20, 25 million, and then we're going to sit down and talk. So there's no harm. There's no foul. Nobody's going to therapy over this.
I feel like of all the positions, excluding special teams, right? So if you're Tyler Metcalf or, one of these guys, or even a Mac Hollins, for instance, before he came to Buffalo last year, running back is the one place, right, where it seems like you've got to do what you've got to do to corner and jockey yourself into the most money that you can possibly get, because the term is always generational wealth. But if we're being honest, when it comes to running backs, $12 million a year for Saquon Barkley, wow, 12 million or 15 for James Cook. And that's what kind of a middle of the road to a little bit better, sometimes interior defensive lineman costs. Like when you think about like what other positions on a football team earn versus what a running back makes, and the length of time that a running back is in, what is it? The average lifespan of a running back in the NFL is 4 years, like 4. Like it's not like they're going to play, generally speaking, for 12. It's just not going to happen. I don't discredit him, and I don't discount him, and I don't disparage him for setting his setting his angle the way that he wants to set it, so that there's an expectation from the Bills that you're not going to get me for free. Now the problem is to the point of the commenter. The problem is, and you guys talked about it at length a couple weeks ago on this program, that he's not a good pass blocker. He's not a complete back. He's not a third down back. So there's some gaps in kind of like in his game and in his play, which he could learn, right? I'm guessing at some point in time, all these guys have to learn how to do it to begin with. The question is, where are the Bills going to be willing to come up to, and where is he going to be willing to come down to, right? I mean, that's what it comes back. That's where the rubber's going to meet the road.
I think with the salary cap increase and what happens with the Myles Garrett situation or anyone else they want to sign at end is going to really dictate whether they keep him or let him go. Right.
It's a great play on each other. So James Cook had,
I'm okay with keeping him, but honestly, Jerry and I can break down offensive line film for you all day long and twice on Sunday and tell you that, Ray Davis ran well behind this line. Ty Johnson ran well behind this line. And you can pick somebody else up for cheaper who can run well behind this line in this scheme. So, you're not going to mortgage everything else to sign a guy for that number unless the structure of the deal makes sense. But I'm not going to say he's not a third down back. I say his pass protection needs work. But I think people are starting ever since this happened. It's like everybody's running to the edge. He's terrible on third down, or he's terrible pass blocker. He's neither of those things, but he's also not in the top 5 at those things either. So he's a middle guy, up to upper third, Pay him what you think he's going to be worth, and if he doesn't like it, move on.
But I think you're also seeing, fellas, kind of the mindset of this organization right off the bat when you take, reports have come out that they're not going to extend the tender offer to Quinton Morris.
That's one of my next ones. Yep.
And the Quinton Morris offer is really not that much money.
Yep. Per Adam Schefter, just don't hold your thought. Per Adam Schefter, the Bills have elected to not tender Quinton Morris, source said, though they would still like to bring him back to Buffalo.
Right. So, the tender offer is, I believe it's like a restricted free agent deal. So if they were to give him that tender offer back and the reason I know this because it happened to me.
Yep.
Back in the day, it was like 800 some thousand. I don't know what it is now. It's probably a little bit more, but I don't think a lot more. But they're obviously, Quinton Morris, if you look at his time in Buffalo or his career in Buffalo is kind of like he's a luxury piece. He's a guy that can come in and spell if you have an injury like he did this year with Kincaid. Really good special teams player, make some plays here and there, but it's almost kind of considered a luxury piece. It's like seat heaters and coolers in your truck, man. We have to have them. They're really awesome, especially when you have a sciatic acting up, but you don't have to have it to have a good truck that works real well, right?
My 2012 Tundra has none of the above.
I don't want to get your sciatic all worked up, Joe, but I think the way you look at this is in comparison to whatever else is available on the market, right? You look at how well Reggie Gilliam played, how well Alec Anderson played at a quasi extra tight end in motion, etc. And you think to yourself, okay, can we step back in quality and get better value out of somebody as a third tight end who's available out there? Okay, we feel good about this. We're not going to tender him.
So Daniel says the tender offer is $3.3 million. Okay, that's more than the back in the day, but really in today's NFL, that's really not much of anything. Although for most people, yes, that's a lot of money, but in the NFL world, it's really not.
I have one more report that came out, 5 hours ago. But before that, I will say this. If it comes down to overpaying James Cook, and I like James Cook a lot. We've talked a lot about James Cook this past year and his growth and what he looks like behind that offensive line and what he brings to this team. But if I can get Myles Garrett, to John's point, seeing Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, and going and getting another guy, not this year, next year, to run behind this offensive line, bring me Myles Garrett.
Pamela thinks the same way you do, Joe.
Oh, nice. That's why I love Pamela.
She says the same thing. Take Myles Garrett over James Cook any day. And if you look at this football team, you'd have to believe, yes, that most feel the same way. But, going back to James Cook and saying what he said on social media, obviously the time was appropriate for him. he was coming off a hell of a season.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was coming off a subpar year.
Yeah. Last report for you. Per Corbin K. Smith, out of Seattle, beat reporter for the Seattle Seahawks. Two other teams that I've been told are monitoring the DK Metcalf situation are the Bills and the Chiefs. Right now, consensus is Seahawks aren't looking to make a deal and still would like to extend the star receiver, but several teams are keeping tabs just in case the door is open. And what do we know about teams that say we will never trade said player? They get traded. So...
Well, DK fits the mold because if you remember him coming out of Ole Miss and coming out of college, he ran two routes, a go ball and a shorter go ball.
Yeah.
Or he ran a go ball and a post. There's somewhere out there's this really cool deal. There's a website called Walter Football.
Yeah.
It's got really cool stuff in it about the combine, and they make a star graph they put the player in the middle, and then they have the best combine times on the outside or best combine time or best reps or whatever on the outside, and then they shoot these data points out and create this kind of a star graph looking thing to show you where they relate. And of course, DK Metcalf's all his straight line stuff was just ridiculous. But then the 20-yard shuttle and all that was subpar because he was not a side to side guy. So if you were in the camp that the Bills need a field stretcher, he would be a pretty good one.
Yeah, actually, somebody tweeted me underneath the live stream right now that's on Twitter, and Yosh Schmenge, I don't know, Bills Gandy. I think they really like Zach Davidson and they're intrigued by his size and athletic ability for the third tight end, is what he's saying as far as the Buffalo Bills.
But but the thing about Zach Davidson is he's another Kincaid.
A little bit.
And I don't necessarily think that Zach Davidson is the special teams player that Morris is. So you got to find somebody else to play teams.
I agree.
If Marv is still the head coach, Morris probably gets his tender, but that's neither here nor there.
So on that point, we got about 10 minutes left in the show, maybe a couple more than that. Moving into just some of the conversations that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott had this past weekend at the Combine. Sean McDermott was open and honest in a way that we rarely see. I'm not saying never, but we rarely see him kind of be open about. And it was primarily focused at Keon Coleman and Cole Bishop. And then it seemed like Brandon Beane came in the next day and kind of cleaned up some of that stuff. McDermott also talked about Dalton Kincaid as well. What stuck out to you guys as far as just in what you heard from both of those two? And I have stuff as well, but I'm curious to kind of throw it to you guys first as far as what stuck out to you in those conversations, in those pressers.
Well, I think do you want to go first, John?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thought is, so what? I mean, you want to win the Super Bowl, you need to put pressure on guys to accelerate.
Is that Primo Barkley?
That would be Gigi.
Gigi, gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, you there's nothing wrong. You go to work every day. People go to work every day, and you say elevate your game, right? Yeah. And this is publicly stated. It's not like, the three of us at our job where the boss pulls you aside or, you have a one-on-one type of meeting. But so what? Add pressure. We need them they're young guys. They need to get better. And it's okay to say, look, you didn't come off your injury well enough. You need to accelerate your development, your speed, everything more, how physical you are. I'm okay with that. And I think it's good. Everybody knows where they stand now. And that's fine with me. In fact, I'd rather know where I stand than not.
I felt it was contradictory. I felt like with Keon Coleman, second-round draft pick as a rookie, McDermott was like, yeah, he started to launch and he had this like trajectory that he was on, and then he got hurt. And then he wasn't on that trajectory anymore, never really returned to what, kind of the progress he was making. And then Cole Bishop, man, it was really unfortunate that he got hurt because he probably could have been a starter, but it's just unfortunate that he got hurt. It's like, wait, also a second rounder. And I'm like, safety was the bigger need than wide receiver, in my opinion.
I'm not going to parse that out. Comments are what they are.
Seven down, by the way.
If you look back at it, he might, you know what? I probably should have said the same thing about Cole Bishop that I said about Keon Coleman. But regardless, they need the expectations go up. They never go down.
For sure.
If you're doing the New York Times crossword puzzle, 7 down was parse, by the way, if you're wanting the
here we go. That's it. I'm out of here.
It was parse if you're hung up on that one. I thought the interesting thing there's a couple comments. First of all, both guys talked almost exclusively about defense. Tons and tons of defense, right?
Yes.
They talked about, different things. I did think it was interesting when McDermott made the comment, the little bit of offense they did talk about, when he made the comment, we don't want to stretch the field just vertically, also horizontally.
Right.
And I didn't know if that was a shot at Beane or not. If you were a conspiracy theorist, you could take it as that, because we all know that Worthy, while not being big at all, not only had straight line speed, but he's very good at stretching the field horizontally.
Yes.
So I thought that was interesting. I did think that they both contradicted each other when they started talking about coverages. McDermott was talking about, don't read too much into this man thing. It might look like we're trying to play a lot of man, but don't read too much into it.
It was just dictated by the who we played at the end of the season.
Right. And then Brandon Beane comes back with we're one of the first teams to play high cover two shell. But then he started talking about the quarterbacks running the football. And
can I stop you right there? Because when he said that, I was like, has Brandon Beane not heard of the Tampa 2 before? because it's been around for a long time.
Yeah, we run it a little differently. We don't.
But you know what I'm saying? Like the cover 2 shell has been around for a long time.
Yeah, but we do. Yes, but we do run a little bit differently, and a lot of teams didn't run it. I will give them that.
Right.
But no, I thought that was interesting. The other thing that was interesting was when Beane was talking about the defensive line, and yeah, it'd be great. We're looking for, guys get hands on people and get pushback, run stoppers, and then we're looking for, but we don't want all the same guy. And I'm like, well, how about we get a bunch of guys that don't do either? But that was besides the point.
Ouch.
That was
fired.
The problem the Beane part was when he was talking about, I'm not, if we were drafted 1 through 10, I would know who I want in this draft, which the Bills, since Brandon Beane has been here, I guess Josh Allen, but outside of that, at 7, and they moved up to get him, have never drafted in the top 10, which is great. We are all at this point entitled Buffalo Bills fans.
Baby.
I will say this.
Plan.
I thought McDermott was much more sincere and probably pointed than Beane. From what we have been told in the past and what has come to fruition with prospects, I would tend to believe that Brandon Beane was probably more full of shit than McDermott was.
Well, where I was going with that was, he said, if I was drafting in the top 10, if we were drafting in the top 10, I would pretty much be locked in on who I want, like in my slot. But because we have no idea who's going to be there, there's a lot of, and I'm paraphrasing, gut feeling of, I'm not so sure about that guy. And I will say this, when it comes to first and second round, Brandon Beane has not been really, if he's not feeling so sure about a guy, that's probably the guy he should draft, because he has not done but Cooper,
I will,
the guys that we could have had, Cooper DeJean, like the list is crazy.
But you got to look at systems and how guys play and how they fit.
But Cooper DeJean fits in this defense.
I will say this, it's hard to pick where we've been picking.
For sure.
Even in the first round, it's hard to pick where we've been picking. You've only got so many guys graded first round.
Yeah.
And it's hard to pick there. And as much as everybody likes to, and we knew it was going to happen, just the hyper focus on last year's situation with Kansas City and us and all that. It was a tough spot to be in. I don't really think he, for whatever reason, they weren't in love with Worthy and what they do and how they do it, and didn't want him, so they took Coleman in the second round. But no, I took McDermott to be much more sincere, and I did think it was interesting, and I agree with what he does. He said when he comes to the combine, he has no preconceived notions. He hasn't seen any of them. He hasn't talked to anybody about it.
McDermott, right? Yeah,
like you in these shows, Joe. You don't want to talk about him beforehand. And that's how he was. He's like, I come in, I put eyes on him, and then I make my opinions. I think that's good.
Context is important.
You're naturally going to have them saying things that conflict with one another because the media coverage, because so much of this is out in the open, right? You can't have every discussion on the third floor at One Bills Drive. It's just not going to happen that way anymore. So, guys get loose in the tongue. One guy says this, one guy says that. They seem to conflict. And if you try to marry up everything right now, nothing is going to fit. The jigsaw puzzle won't come together. But what's interesting about this is all of what you see in the combine, everything you see, all the external factors that are pressing on the Bills aren't going to make a difference until everybody in that staff gets into one room and they fight it out. And they will fight it out.
Right.
They're going to be fighting for, are we taking a DN, a DT, a corner, or a receiver, right? And where are we going to go? Best available, what have you. But even today, they have no idea what it's going to look like come the draft in April. But they're going to fight it out. And the difference is now we get to fight it all out in the media. It's all out in the open. So I hear one comment, the guy contradicts it. I'm like, that's fine. They're just talking. It's all media day. It's Radio Row. They're just talking.
Yeah, we also need to just throw out there as well is that the NFL free agency period opens March 12th. So even before the draft begins. So,
But I will say this: I've got nothing but love for either of them. I know that can be a controversial comment in itself. I got nothing but love for either of them because when I looked at, when you look at the cap situation last year and the team that they were able to put together to get us where we were, that was extraordinary work.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, we had holes. We're going to have holes with the situation we were in.
My final comment on that is, and I was listening to a lot of stuff today, I think Von Miller goes ahead and just renegotiates, restructures, goes down. I don't think he has the open market value that he had in the past. And I think if he looks around the league, where is he going to go? Where can he end up, earn really well, and make a run for another ring? I don't think it exists. I think a smart play for Von Miller is to realize I'm 36 years old, take a huge new deal that reduces him, and you know what, makes his run, be the third down guy off the bench, and try to get a ring with Josh Allen.
And what he did last year, I mean, it was unprecedented. And Beane talked about it. I mean, he took below his guaranteed value in his contract,
and he's going to do it again, is my prediction.
Right.
Well, I don't know how that works. Spin just said cut Vaughn and re-sign him, which I think is more likely. I don't know that they can. He's not staying on this roster.
They got to redo it.
Well, they can cut him after June 1st. June 1st, he
I'm
saves
saying if
17
they
million.
redo it, they're going to save a hell of a lot more. Basically, like void the contract.
This is where we would need Greg Thompson, right? So who knows contract stuff in and out. I'm just saying, like, my only point behind that, yes, you could be correct. My only point is he's not staying on this roster if they can save $17 million. Not staying on this roster. Like, literally, June 1st, they cut him. We get $17 million back. He costs us $6 million, and then we're done with Vaughn forever. There's no way he's staying on this roster if that's the case, to your point. Yeah. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to get him down to that same number without potentially, to Spin's point, cutting him and then re-signing him. But if you look, and it comes down to Myles Garrett, if he sees Myles Garrett coming in, where is he going to go if he wants to play this in 2025? Like, what team is like, yeah, Vaughn, come here. That's a Super Bowl contender. It's got to be somebody that's close to him, right? That loves him and wants Vaughn on their team to get him that third ring with the elusive, never happened before third ring, Super Bowl championship with the third team, right? Which is what he's trying to do. He's trying to get a third Super Bowl with a third team, which has never happened before. I don't know, man. I just don't know where he goes as far as that goes.
Good times.
Right. So what else? Anything else before I get us out of here from that group of press conferences?
No, I thought they were good. I mean, I enjoyed both of them. It was the highlight though was Sal, our boy Sal from the Believe Network, Moriana, who asked 5 different times about a field stretcher, and finally Brandon Beane goes, "Is that your way of telling me I need a field stretcher? By the way, you've asked me this question again."
Yeah.
But no, I think that obviously when you look at who they've brought in on defense, coaching wise, Nelson. D-line emphasis, bring the guy back who's a Clarence guy, D-line emphasis, D-line coach is there, bring in another cornerbacks guy that was under Belichick. And I mean, it's just obvious that they see the same thing, the writing's on the wall. They've got to get this defense better. And while I think we will see a veteran come in as far as a guy to maybe be that field stretcher, that might be the only thing we really see as far as any kind of major tweak on offense. This offseason is going to be defense and a lot of it.
Well, I feel like Josh Allen coming into 2024, we're in the same space. We saw the wide receiver room that they gave him, and we were all like, Josh Allen is going to have to elevate the play of the guys around him. He's going to have to be Tom Brady. He's going to have to be Peyton Manning. He's going to have to be John Elway, Jim Kelly. He's going to have to take guys that aren't Tom Brady more than any of them, right? Because they gave Tom Brady nobody for so many years, as far as he had Edelman, and that was pretty much it. And Edelman, when he got Edelman, wasn't even a true wide receiver as far as that goes. And I feel like he had some struggles, and then they got through it, and he proved, yes, I can win without Stephon Diggs level elite wide receivers. So to your point, Jerry, like, I feel like at this point now, Josh Allen is going to do Josh Allen things almost regardless of who you put around him. We need to make this defense win.
Right. And the thing that I think that New England did better than anybody in the Belichick years was identifying the vet that maybe was a little past his prime that they could bring in and say, okay, you used to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need you to do these 2 things really well. Right. And that's all I need you to do is these 2 things. And I thought they did a really good job of that. And I think maybe that's what you'll see Buffalo kind of leaning towards.
And in closing, we're 2.5 guys away right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Miles Garrett.
And it's not on offense, right? We're the highest scoring team
Joe.
in the league, right? Highest scoring
Miles
team
Garrett
in
is
the league.
2.5 guys.
We're 2.5 guys away. Miles is
2.5
one and
guys,
Miles is 1.5, and then one other one.
And they're both on defense.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, John. And then it just turns into, is it a corner or is it a safety, right? When you look at some of the preconceived kind of tweets that are out there as far as like what this defensive unit's going to look like, I don't like the idea of Taylor Rapp on the bench. I like Taylor Rapp and his game. I think DeMar is the odd man out, right? DeMar Hamlin, which McDermott talked about, I believe, or no, it was Beane was asked about DeMar Hamlin. He said he'd hug him and send him on his way, right? They're going to have to do something at safety, in my opinion. And maybe it's Cole Bishop, but I didn't get the feeling. I didn't get the glowing response. I didn't get the, oh my God, it's Cole Bishop from that press conference. That like, oh no, it's Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop.
When have you ever gotten that from Sean? I mean, Sean is a prove it to me guy. I mean, he's not just going to throw accolades on you to throw accolades on you.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're not wrong.
Bishop is a guy, and he was right. He had the shoulder injury in camp. His progression slowed because of that. I think the other thing, it's going to be interesting to see who they do hire as far as new strength coach and kind of what can you tell a difference in physique and what this team looks like when they come on the field. That'll be something interesting. But yeah, I mean, my only other comment is if it's a defensive tackle, I didn't say defensive end. If it's a defensive tackle and he don't weigh at least 315 pounds, he's not allowed in the building. So if any security people are listening, do not let any defensive tackle prospects in One Bills Drive unless they are put a scale out front. If they're over 315, check their pockets because
it opens the door.
Revoke the key card. Revoke the key card.
Because people like Fina put 5-pound weights in their coat to make sure they make weight.
My God.
Just make sure they're at least frisk them down and make sure they're at least 315.
By the way, before I get us out of here, everything Jerry said is completely relevant, and I laughed at John Fina saying, "Oh my God!" But other than that, I believe Lamar Jackson retweeted, or put something out there. There was a tweet going around of a compilation video of Doug Flutie highlights from the year that he was here, and it is riddled with number 60 and number 70. So if you can go back and find that video, it's fun to watch as far as just to see these two gentlemen all over the football field blocking their ASSs off for Doug Flutie in those games. So gentlemen, that was a fun watch for me, for both of you, just so you know, because I think I tweeted about it, but I'm not sure we talked about it at all. So any final thoughts before I get us out of here? Guess not.
One.
Kind of piggyback real quick. If you are a football historian, if you like the whole science behind ball and X's and O's, there's an interview out there also where they're talking to Flutie about that, and I think it might be Edelman and them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but
he talks about how today's football creeped into the NFL, and it talks about Chip Kelly going up to Toronto and meeting with the Argonauts when Flutie and those guys were there, and learning that whole option type thing, and then Chip Kelly bringing it to Oregon, turning into the zone. I'm sorry, taking it to New Hampshire before he went to Oregon, and turning into the zone read, and then how that became a big trend in football. So if you're into that stuff, find it, watch it. It's really good.
Pretty cool. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by the Believe Sports Network. My name is Joe Miller, and super excited that you guys joined us for this another off-season episode of our program. Got a lot of good stuff coming up for you throughout this off-season as free agency opens, as the draft happens, as mini camps and OTAs and all that kind of stuff starts to build up. We're actually going to be meeting as a group here coming up next week just to kind of talk about 2025 and get our plans in place. But yeah, so good to have every single one of you guys joining us live. Thank you so much. But for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at Overreaction, appreciate you. Love you. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.